or our advertisers.
With us live from Bismarck, Congressman Kevin Cramer. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I don't know if you heard much of my first piece or not, but I basically asked the question, so I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, who killed the Farm Bill in the U.S. House?
Well, Chris, I did actually hear your first segment and watched it as well from Bismarck here, and thanks for the opportunity to be with you and to share some of my thoughts. You know, there's always, usually I should say, enough blame to go around in these situations, and certainly certain things can be done to get to 218 votes, although I have to say that in this particular case, the way you teed it up, I think is pretty accurate. The reality is that this was the most bipartisan major piece of legislation I've participated in. It had a lot of momentum. It was brought to the committee in a bipartisan fashion. As you showed, our friend Colin Peterson, the Democrat, ranking Democrat in the Ag Committee, working with Frank Lucas, the chairman, the Republican chairman of the Ag Committee, brought things to the bill that both of them liked and none of them loved. A couple hundred amendments were heard in the committee. A bipartisan bill emerged with bipartisan support, came to the floor of the House of Representatives with great momentum. Not overwhelming, Chris. There are certain factions, both on the right and the left, that will never support a farm bill. But there was something in there for everybody, and there was real reform, not only in SNAP, but on the agricultural side as well. I think it's important to point that out. And it looked like we had plenty of votes right up until the very final vote. I debated several of the amendments myself on the floor. Some were Democrat amendments, some were House amendments, some passed, some did not, some I liked, some I didn't like. But at the end of it, all of a sudden, there were only 24 Democrat votes for final passage, and that was a great disappointment to many of us, and I think probably to Colin as well. And yes, most of it was over the SNAP program, but I think one of the things we have to be clear about, you talked about the Sutherland Amendment. I think that's worth discussing. I think there's some political strategy in how that was handled. But before there were any amendments, before the bill even came to the floor, Barack Obama announced his intention, or at least threatened a veto. Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader, announced her opposition to the bill even before there was a Sutherland Amendment or any other amendments. And that sends a pretty chilling message into the House floor to Democrats, and so consequently we only got 24 Democrat votes. We obviously needed more.
But again, I think, okay, we can point the finger at Obama or Pelosi Democrats. At the end of the day, you guys had the 218 votes as a majority. So I think what we've got to do, which I know isn't easy for you to do, Kevin, so I understand this, and you've got to point the finger at someone inside your party. So, you know what, Chris, this is the person or this is the amendment that killed this thing, and I'm asking you, who do you think that is?
Well, amendments don't kill bills, Chris. Members kill bills. There were amendments that I didn't like. I voted, for example, with Colin Peterson on his dairy provision. I voted against the amendment to strip it. That amendment prevailed. You know, obviously it didn't prevail for me, it didn't prevail for Colin Peterson, but we still both voted for the final passage of the bill. So what exactly does it? I think the Sutherland Amendment at the end was a factor for many Democrats. And the most disappointing thing to me, and Chris, don't get me wrong, there are Republicans that should have voted for this bill that did not. There are Republican chairmen, people like Paul Ryan, Representative Goodlatte, who used to be chairman of the Ag Committee, is now chairman of the Judiciary Committee, voted against the bill after successfully passing the amendment that was so offensive to Colin Peterson. When guys like that do things like that, it does cause one to pause and think, well, wait a minute, are we on the same team or aren't we? Are we going to have real reform in SNAP and in agriculture, or aren't we? Because killing the bill means we're not getting to reform. That's what I mean by there's blame on both sides. But Chris, we could pass a harshly partisan, I suppose, Republican bill. We could repeal Obamacare one more time by attaching it to the Farm Bill, and maybe more conservatives would feel good about it. But at the end of the day, we wouldn't have a bill that would be seriously considered by the Senate. And that's the piece that's missing in a lot of this discussion, Chris. The Senate passed a bill that, frankly, most of the farm groups find quite troubling. They liked the House version better. We did things like bifurcated conservation compliance from participation in the crop insurance program. We did away with the AGI and the means testing that is in the Senate bill. Those are things that would really undermine the effectiveness of crop insurance. So they needed our bill to reconcile it with the Senate version of the bill. And that seems to be lost with a lot of people. This would not have been the final law. There was another bill to compare this to negotiate with, and to compromise with. And that was lost on all the people that sort of took their ball and went home because their particular pet amendment didn't pass or did pass.
So, Kevin, and I agree with you. I think it is people, not amendments, that end up killing this bill. So let me ask you this question. GOP leadership pulled a rule, if you will, that limited the debate on the Sutherland Amendment to 5 minutes. That essentially was House Majority Leader Eric Cantor. Is it his fault then that this thing didn't pass? Yes or no?
Well, first of all, Eric Cantor voted for the bill. He encouraged all of us to vote
but what
for
I'm
the bill.
asking you
Yes,
is,
he did speak
did
on that
he
amendment.
use Sutherland as a decoy?
Chris, that rule is not a new rule. All of the amendments have 5 minutes. That wasn't a new rule. That wasn't some sort of a stunt that he pulled. All of the amendments, when you have, by the way, we heard and voted on the floor 103 amendments. So it's not like it was some sort of a scheme. Now, is the timing of it as the last amendment suspicious? I suppose people can speculate about that. At the end of the day, after the vote was taken, there was an eerie pall in the room. There's no question. Even people who opposed the Farm Bill sort of sat quietly looking at the board thinking, but this was supposed to pass, to the point where once the clock got to zero, they kept the key open, trying to get people to reconsider their votes. At that point, when it was apparent that the bill was lost, there were about 3 people switched their vote to the prevailing side, so it actually had more votes prior to the key being left open for an extra 5 to 10 minutes.
Kevin, I want to play a clip for you.
It was discouraging, Chris.
From the Moorhead Ag Roundtable, some comments that you said. I want to play this for you and then give you a chance to comment on it. If we can hear this, please.
I think that my task on my side has been and is, and I work it very hard, is to help conservatives understand what the alternative is. And the alternative is that we continue with continuing resolutions and we continue with extensions, all of which cost more than the Farm Bill that was passed by the Ag Committee. A Farm Bill that, by the way, meets all of the criteria of the budget resolution that Paul Ryan passed with 100% Republican vote. So I think a lot of it is the communication piece of it. That's where, this is where we work. This is how we work. Sort of one member at a time, one skeptic at a time, and just helping people understand in an honestly intellectual way that, again, do not let perfect be the enemy of good. And
so, Kevin, let me ask you this, because you just said, this is my task.
Yes.
What prevented you from accomplishing your task and getting more conservatives on board?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is that there were some other amendments that conservatives wanted in the bill that they didn't get. For example, conservatives tried to do away with the sugar program, or at least reform it dramatically. I oppose that. In fact, Colin Peterson, Frank Lucas, the chairman, and I all debated in favor of sugar against conservative assault on it. We prevailed. I think that was something that some conservatives have a hard time with. But that said, again, that's not an excuse for them to vote against the bill. None of us got 100% of what we wanted. And if we have to have perfection, as we view it, to pass bills, then we're not going to pass very many bills, Chris. That's the reality. This was an indictment on the House of Representatives. And while 171 or 172 Republicans voted for the bill and 24 Democrats voted for the bill, we needed more of both, in my view. We should have had more of both. And I'm disappointed, certainly in about 60 Republicans that, maybe 40. There's 20 of them that you can never count on. But I'm also disappointed in about 40 Democrats. We've never had a farm bill fail for lack of Democrats' votes before, and it happened this time.
Be sure and stay with us when we come back. Very happy ending for a young child at Spirit Lake Reservation. My gut tells me that Congressman Cramer had a lot to do with it. You're going to hear more about that in a moment. And again, if you got any questions or comments for Congressman Cramer, go to our website, 630pov.com. Text us, email us. We'll be sure to ask those to him in just a moment. We'll be right back. With us live from Bismarck, Congressman Kevin Cramer. Kevin, thanks for sticking around. As you know, death of a twin, almost 3-year-old girl about a week and a half or so ago now up at Spirit Lake Reservation. There is a surviving twin. I want to ask you this question. Your team last Thursday night had a very long conversation with a certain person that is tied into the Spirit Lake situation. That was Thursday night. Friday morning, Michaela is put back together with her foster mom out of Bismarck, essentially maybe saving this young girl's life. I guess my question to you is, how much did you impact that decision? Because from what I'm hearing, there was no chance she was going back to Bismarck.
Chris, I'm really not interested in taking credit for things like that. To the degree that I deserve credit, it's because I'm in a position of some influence, and my team, as you call them, and I appreciate you calling them that. The people that work for me took it upon themselves to do the job that we're all hired to do on behalf of the citizens, and we pushed a little, and so much of it's just communicating and just having some direct line through a person or a position of influence, and we're just grateful that she's okay.
I want to find out more about the BAA. I know last time we had you on, you said, hey, Chris, the BAA is essentially stonewalling us. I've talked to Senator Hoeven's people as well. That's a word that they often use when it comes to the BAA. And then there's this. We've got a police report that we're trying to get. We had one of our cameramen basically get assaulted up on the reservation, want to press charges. We just simply want the police report. And now the BIA is telling us you have a right to treat this delay. They told us it was going to be delayed. This delay as a denial of your request for a police report. What is the BIA hiding? Why is it so hard to get information from them?
Well, Chris, I have tried to get police reports from the BIA on other matters as well, fatalities in car accidents, reports of car accidents that resulted in a BIA police officer fleeing the actual scene of the accident, not even getting help or an ambulance for the victim, who was nothing more than a victim. I mean, it's kind of beyond me, and how they can stonewall and they hide, as I think I've said to you before, they hide behind confidentiality. They hide behind, well, this is ongoing, an ongoing investigation, therefore you're not entitled to it. And so that's why I've called in, to the BIA director, Black, as well as Interior Secretary, and we're trying to get the Secretary out here, as a matter of fact. Why they can do it, I don't know. I guess they can. They do because they can, and for some reason they can because no one's really called them on it, and we're calling them on it.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. I think you may have saved this young girl's life, and we appreciate it. Stay with us, because when we come back, we're going to get to your questions for Congressman Cramer. Again, join our conversation by going to our website, 630pov.com. There you can email us, text us. We'll be right back. The interactive TV show here in the Valley. Earlier today, at the Valley News Live Facebook page, we asked you, who do you think is to blame for the Farm Bill not passing in the U.S. House? Congressman Kevin Cramer is still with us. Congressman, I hope you can still hear me, because I want to share this poll with you. Obviously not scientific, but here's what the people in the Valley are saying. Democrats, 5 people blame the Democrats, 12 people blame the Republicans, 9 blame both, and 6 say, I don't care. I just want to get your comments on that.
Well, yeah, that sounds about right, I suppose, Chris. With having the majority, even though we delivered 171 votes, we do carry a greater responsibility, and so people are right to blame us to some degree. I think people are right to blame Democrats to perhaps a greater degree. That said, I think both are to blame.
All right, well, we're going to move on to questions from our audience. We've only got to look at 60 seconds, Kevin. This might be the only one we get to, but it says this. Okay. Was there any input from the Spirit Lake Tribal Council in the child returning to the foster home?
Not that I know of, but that's not to say there wasn't. There could have been, but I'm not aware of any.
Okay, Kevin, I didn't quite hear you, but thank you very much for being with us tonight. We appreciate you always taking the time. You're one of those guys that doesn't matter what's going on, whether you and I agree or not, or the public, you're going to come on the show, give us your thoughts, and give us your frank comments. We always appreciate that. So keep up the great work. We look forward to having you back on soon, okay?
Thanks, Chris. I cherish the opportunity every time.
Thank you very, very much. As always, be sure and join us tomorrow night as well. I think we're going to have at least one, maybe more than one great guest to dive into some allegations against NDSU President Dean Bershani erasing some emails. Big deal? Not a big deal? Hopefully we're going to have someone that can answer some of those questions tomorrow night. As always, join our conversation. Go to our website, 630pov.com. Have an outstanding Monday evening.